Okay. Pretty devastating.
That's
Really
compelling.
devastating.
And you know what? Sammy was, a cool, measured guy. Man, Franzese looked like he was the captain of the Gambino family at a time. I mean, underboss in the Gambino family at a time. And Sammy looked like he got in through his daddy's name. Through Sonny's your father, and my dad is Sonny, and hey, Dad, can I get into? That's what Sammy looked like. Like he didn't know protocol. He didn't have discipline, decorum. He didn't know he was emotional. He looked like just an unmade associate that would be sent out on a piece of knuckle, like some knuckle dragon work.
Well, that's Sammy Gravano. That's what he did to the Gambino family. That's what he did to all those guys that were murdered. That's him. Frustrate him, and you could die. Push back on him, and you could die. Do you see what he said? If this was years ago, I thought he's still the mafiosi. I thought he's still the same guy. If this was years ago. You know why he says that? Because he don't have Louis Molito anymore. He don't have Joe Peruta anymore. He don't have Mike the Bat anymore. You don't have Nicky Cowboy anymore. You don't have a list of guys anymore that would go out. You don't have Frankie Fabiano anymore. You don't have Little Joey anymore. He don't have a list of guys to go out and murder for him. That's what he means. He don't even realize what he said. If this was years ago. Why? He's not a man no more? That he considers himself a man, the more guys you kill, right? That's Sammy Gravano and the violence, propensity for violence. So now, right now, well, Michael Francese, as you just stated, acted like a statesman in that life and conducted himself with decorum, using your word, and even tells him at the end, learn how to talk. It points his finger right in his face and tells him, learn how to talk. That's an elder speaking to a young buck. So Michael takes him to school there. But more importantly, on the violence end, Sammy gets up with his tail between his legs. He became a mutt. Michael made a mutt out of this guy verbally and challenged him physically. So let's go. He says, well, we'll go outside when there's people like, let's go. I'm not afraid of you. And when he uses that thing, underboss, you're not the underboss anymore. The way I get it is, to what I just said earlier, you can't here to order people to do things for you. You got nothing to say anymore. Nobody respects you. You ratted. You call him a rat. You blasted this guy calling him a rat. You ratted. You make it like you're dignified, like you stood up for the life. It's amazing how he has the nerve, the gall, to get on here and call everybody out who disagrees with him on the computer. People have different agendas on their shows. I may not like what they say, but that's their content. They have a right to challenge it, and we have a right for a rebuttal if we so choose to do. But if we don't, fine. This guy calls everybody out, and he had a guy nose to nose in that space. And then after the space, they could have left. Michael told him, I'll go outside with you. Sammy did nothing. You know what he did with him? He said he'll eat him alive. He'll eat him alive. I'm wondering what that means. Because they became partners. They're partners now, aren't they?
Yeah.
So what kind of eat him alive does he mean? I don't know what that means with this guy. You know, maybe he says things you don't realize what he really wants to do. So how could you go partners with somebody that abused you like that? He abused Sammy Gravano. Look, when I was talking to Sammy, one of his first targets was Michael Francese. For some reason, he came out. Again, this is what I was dealing in the beginning. I never told you this either.
No.
Well, these things open doors for me. And Sammy knows. He knows. He would never admit it. He says it. He said it all along in other shows. He called Michael out. But he told me his target was going to be Michael. Of course, Michael was the big guy on the block, just like Gravano said about all the little people like me, the little guy, and you too. You're a little guy too, if you like it or not. All the little people, right? That are going after his viewership. He was going after Michael's viewership because Michael was a big guy. I think he had like 800,000 at the time.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. You're right.
So you can't believe anything that comes out of this guy's mouth.
So he told you this privately.
Yeah, it's helpful, of course. I told you he wanted me to go partners with him.
I knew that, but I didn't know he would.
Yeah. He had an agenda. He had an agenda. He had things lined up, he thought, with Hollywood, which fell flat at the time. Right now, he'll probably get lucky and do something. He hooked up with Michael, a guy. Look at the video. I don't know how Michael even talks to this guy, but that's on them. You know, they're strange bedfellows. Money does strange things to people. So again, no knock on Michael. He's in business. He's good at what he does. He's a great marketer of himself. One of the best, I think, ever. A great orator, great speaker, captivating. And look, I'm very impressed the way he comported himself in that meeting. He really looked like the wise guy.
No, he's the closest thing. You and him, and I talked to other people by phone in this genre who said you and him just have a different way of conduct. You know, actually, Tom LaVecchia, I was talking to him, and he said, if you took all the titles away from everybody and you just watched them, how they talk, how they act in their shows, you could tell the ones who were captain, the ones that were unmade, the guys who, like if you had the power of labels and you had to put them on each person's chest, he said you could tell that Michael was somebody. You could tell Franzese was somebody. You could tell, and he said other guys. Yeah, he said he's seen other guys that you can just tell by the way of conduct. Now, I will say that was the first time, because I'm not going to take anything from Sammy. Sammy, from how I research him, I don't know him. You know him. He did seem like a guy that knew how to lead men. But in that video, he looked bad. That's a bad look in that video.
Well, you know, take all his videos. Take all his videos. Look at the guy he is. So how many times he's saying videos, I want to give that guy a slap. He says it all the time. He's got violence here all the time. But the point is, in there, if this was years ago, really, everybody, you killed them, Sammy. All the tough guys, or you ratted on them, Sammy. All the guys that went and wanted to do work for you and did work for you are gone. So why you're not the same man you were then, only because you had those guys? Listen to what he said. He called himself a punk. And he acted that, Michael. Again, Michael punked him.
That's the line I didn't like out of the whole thing. If this was years ago, because that's like saying that you weren't what you were. Because
exactly,
you are what you are no matter what your age is. You're still the same you. Just because you're just an older version of what you are. If this was years ago, it's like, I don't know. In one breath, I'm mafiosi, but in that statement, I'm not mafiosi no more. But if it was years ago when I was mafiosi.
No, it's when he had a gang around him, when he had people around him. And, you know, Sammy was a force for the reason he just said. He had a great crew who loved him. He rewarded them. He rewarded his crew. He took some of their lives.
Maybe it's just me, but I'm a believer that everybody has an end game, has a purpose for why they do something. If you don't have if you're just pissing in the wind, if there's no purpose behind why you're doing something, it usually doesn't end well. What's Sammy's purpose in these stories? What's the end game for him? What does he want to be remembered as? Because I would say after, you know, you're away from your family for 17 years, you did 5 years the first time, you lost a lot of your life, and, you know, you're out here talking now, you're reflecting, you're getting up in age. Like, what does he want to be remembered for? Do you think?
Oh, I don't think I know. He wants to go down as the greatest gangster ever, ratting or no ratting. He's better than John Gotti. You know that. The whole world knows that. Ask Sammy. He'll tell you. Ask Simon Says. Simon Says. You got to believe him. No, it's true. Just think about it. He's smarter than everybody. He knows more than everybody. John Gotti screwed him. Everybody knows it. Ask Sammy. The guy died chained to a bed in the hospital, choking on his vomit. Bad guy. This is, as Sammy said, what did he say? I don't even repeat it anymore, but we know what Sammy said I should do, right? Really? Mafiosa? Everybody, if anybody in the street watches this, who's a real mafiosa? In Sammy's mind, it's his, not John Gotti or any other guys that are going to die in jail or have died in jail in this life. Because it's not them. Sammy says. Sammy knows. Yeah, this is an attack video on Sammy. Yes, it is. So I'll save everybody the typing. Don't type it. It is. We're going after him right now.
Oh, my God.
But it's only, look, I'm only bringing out, I asked you to pull up some videos. They're his words. Again, his books, his 302s. We're going to show him that 302.
Oh, we didn't even get to that yet.
We got a lot of 302s. We got a lot of stuff to say. Sammy's words. I'm going to call him out. He calls people punks. Their balls are this big. Well, in that video, what Michael Franceschis did to him, how big are his balls? I don't even think a big ball point would be the size of his balls right now. Somebody's right in front of you, and they punked you. He was biting all over. Rah, 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 rah. You see how he was biting? He was chewing. He wanted to eat him up. Slap away like you opened it up. He was one slap. Even if he missed, you don't want to take it? He had a cup in his hand, right? He had that Anisette cup over there. Nice express. Why don't you pick it up, hit him right in the face with it? Why don't you throw it at him? He's an actor. Years ago, he had a big crew. Tough as could be. Not the toughest, tough as could be. And now we know why Sammy had a tough crew. Because it was the crew, not him. It's easy to give orders. For him. I could never do that. And neither did John Gotti. To his detriment by not killing Angelo Ruggiero.
Meaning that you have a conscience, John Gotti has a conscience, and are you saying Sammy doesn't have one?
Well, look, I won't say about myself. I'll let everybody else decide if I have a conscience or not. Time will tell. Water seeks its level. I'm brand new at this. I want everybody. The story's not told until the story ends. The book is still going. There's people are still writing in that book about me, Gravano, and everybody else. When you're dead, the story's over. Then you can write it. Sam, you have a conscience? No, he says he don't. Says he don't. He said he don't have a conscience.
Does John Gotti have a conscience?
John had a conscience. There would be a lot more people dead. He had a conscience. Now, in the video, he says, John didn't like me. Well, this family came out and says, you're right, Sammy. John didn't like Michael. What did he do, Ajay? What did she say?
Said he loved Michael. Multiple times. I heard Angel say publicly, she said this publicly, that my father loved Michael.
That's
very
right.
much.
Sammy was wrong again.
And she said her brother said the same thing, that my father loved Michael. So it's
So this guy wants to paint everybody, and he started with Michael Francesi, who's now hooked up with Sammy and doing something good. They're going to do very well. I believe they'll do very, very well. But they don't like. I'm not saying I take the word they out. Sam don't like to be challenged in any form. Every little guy. I'm not going to mention any guys out there saying that that's up to them to go and address Sammy's accusations. I was a little stunned they went after Jimmy Calandra, though. It really was. You know? Because Jimmy idolizes this guy. Jimmy follows him around, you know. His house. I know. He's in Sammy's site. You told me. He goes in, he comments, and then he blasted Jimmy. I was really shocked by that. But, you know, nothing shocks me when it comes to Sam. See, when he loses emotion, he didn't realize they're probably, Jim and him are probably friends. But in that moment of rage, when he gets like that, he's dangerous. He didn't realize he hurt his friend by saying that. Why do you have to talk about Sparrow? He could address that with Jimmy face to face, Sammy. You could address him not liking saying bad things about Sparrow face to face.
How did John Gotti meet Sammy? I mean, there's no real good answer out there as to how I've seen different sources, different accounts, but how did they meet?
I know how they didn't meet. They didn't meet in a beauty parlor, getting beauty parlor haircutting lessons. The hairdresser, right? You went to hairdressing school? John Gotti went to hairdressing school? They didn't meet there. I don't think so. I don't think John. I think if John ever knew he was a hairdresser, I can't even say him making Skipper. I know John, and he was a good guy, another family. He was with us for a while, then he transferred. Associate at the time. Wouldn't approve his name to get straightened out because he babysat his kids. I know another guy that he liked very, very well. Very much. Very close to the family. Tended bar. And he wouldn't straighten him out, no matter how much he liked him. You know why? He was a bartender in his mind. He was a happy-go-lucky guy and a really good guy. But he was a bartender. And he wouldn't straighten him out. If he ever found out Sammy was a hairdresser, I don't think he would ever moved up the ranks.
Wow, isn't that interesting? And this is the guy that called Tommy Gambino a dressmaker.
It's not to sell dresses, you know, like being manufactured, worth hundreds of millions, right? There's Tommy and his family. His father was Carlo Gambino, plus all the relatives they had by the dozens that were in the mob forever. I'd rather be that guy selling those dresses than the guy washing somebody's head. Who wants their hair washed next? I got to wash a head. How many heads do I wash today? I mean, nothing wrong with being a hairdresser. I'm not saying hairdressers are gay. I'm gonna go away from that. But I'm thinking of a person. Yeah. I'm a hairdresser. I'm going to hairdressing school. So I think John Gotti, if he knew that, the history might have been different.
Yeah, I guess someone, or I don't want to misquote it, so I won't say who, but I guess someone saw Tommy Gambino pinning a dress onto a woman. Just he was working, I guess someone walked in, he was helping her pin a dress on her or something. He said, and this is the guy Paul's thinking about making act, you know, it was rumors he said about either Tommy Gambino or Thomas Pilati taking over. If Paul went to jail, he's going to put him as acting boss or something. And he said, this is the same guy pinning a dress on a woman. You want to make this guy to, you know, so.
Where'd that story come from?
No, he said that. That's in his book. I believe it's either on his book or on his podcast. He talked about how there was a debate about Tommy Gambino or Bilotti and he said Tommy Gambino specifically that Paul was thinking about making Tommy Gambino acting boss or something when he went away.
All right, I'm not going to debate that. I don't know. I don't have no info either way on that. But to say he was pitting, Tommy didn't pit no dresser. Tommy was top echelon guy in that business. He sat in an office with a suit on all day long. He wasn't downstairs pitting dresses on people. That's ridiculous. He wasn't a dressmaker like that. Now, Toto, right? Toto and Jimmy Brown, you know what they did for a living? Do you know?
Tommy and who?
Toto.
Toto.
Little Toto, Sammy's boss, and Jimmy Brown. You know what they did?
No.
They own dress factories. Did you know that?
No.
My mother worked for Toto. Had to be 20 years. And Jimmy Brown, when they were Toto and Jimmy Brown were partners in dress shops. You know how many wise guys had dress shops? So everybody at a dress shop, of course, according to him, was not capable of being a wise guy or being a tough guy. I don't know. Little Toto and Jimmy Brown had pretty fast reputations. So I guess he called them dressmakers too, huh?
Yeah.
Lucchese, was he a dressmaker?
Not sure.
Oh, he was a garment business. How about Joe Gallo?
Well, I guess if you're in the garment district, you're right. You are involved in that. Garments in general, you're right. Yeah.
So everybody was a dressmaker?